Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview sponsored by the British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom and Bathroom Installation. My name is Louis Mendes. I hope you guys are well. On this week's show, we will, of course, be looking back at that agonising late home defeat against Bristol Rovers on Tuesday evening and ahead to Saturday's home game with Port Vale. Joining me to do that, first of all, the man we all blame for everything of making his first appearance on Charlton Live this season, Lewis Cat. How you doing, Lou?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Yeah, obviously blaming you a little bit for the defeat on Tuesday night.
Fair enough.
But yeah, good to see you for the first time this campaign. And also, as people in the chat are pointing out, wearing the same shirt as Lewis, the blue third kit from last season. It's Tom Walling. How you doing, Tom?
Yeah, sorry about that, but I wasn't going to change. So yeah, I'm all right.
Dan's asking if I didn't get the memo about the blue third kit. I don't own the blue third kit. My wife does. And when I saw these two were wearing it, I did think, would it be funny to try and squeeze into that? But I mean, that would have been quite embarrassing for me, really, because there's no chance I would have fitted into that. So good evening to everyone in the live chat as well, joining us on YouTube. Steve Mays in there, Shiny Phil's in there, Paul Glover's in there. And of course, Jonathan West from Charlton Upbeats is in there as well. Good to see you joining us. But have your say on this evening's show. Let us know what you made of Tuesday's game. Where it went wrong, why it didn't quite go right, because we were close to getting something from that. It was one of the most frustrating defeats we've had in a while. Let us know what changes you want to see for Port Vale on Saturday. Yeah, plenty to talk about. We're going to hear the goals in a few seconds' time. We're also, hopefully later on in the show, we're going to hear from a Port Vale fan. We, of course, have got loads of Dean Holden reaction to the game on Tuesday and a look ahead to Port Vale as well. Just before we hear the goals very quickly, Lewis, I don't know how you sum that one up. I mean, we were an inch away from going into the lead in the 90th minute when Alfie May hit the post. We conceded a sloppy goal, certainly one that the goalkeeper would want to look at once more because he didn't cover himself with glory in that one. And defensively, we had similar issues to what we've had all season. But there were elements, again, of the performance. We were like, bits of it were okay. So it's quite a tough one to sum up.
Yeah, I think the best thing would be, deja vu from Saturday. The performance was probably just about there. There were some frustrations. You got to remember it's only 3 league games in. We're probably still learning our best systems, our best passages of play. But I think the biggest disappointment will be that it is self-inflicted. Again, the defensive sort of errors and mishaps that we've made now at Peterborough and today, have cost us 5 points over those 2 games. So look, is it a new system that's going to take time to adjust? Maybe, but I think the big frustration will be that it's the basics of defending. The two goals we conceded on Tuesday night were pretty appalling, and it just hurts that bit more when it's so late on as well. Especially as you say, when we went so close ourselves to Alfie May, who I do not know what that boy needs to do to score. He's getting in all the right places, doing all the right things. It's just not hitting for him, but I'm hoping it does soon because, he's putting the effort in and stuff. But yeah, look, tough one to take. It's any last minute goal like that is a real kick in the nuts. So look, we've got to dust ourselves down pretty quick and we go again Saturday.
Right, let's have a quick listen back to the goals from Charlton TV. The commentators, as always, were Terry Smith and Greg Stubley.
For Dobson, I reckon one of these is going to walk away here. We'll wait and see. And it's Thomas who actually walks away. And it's Evans with the strike and Maynard Brewer with the save. Collins with the rebound and it's tapped home by Sinclair. Charlton didn't react. A brilliant free kick from Evans. Maynard Brewer saved, but there was Collins who ran away from the wall, unmarked and back across to find Sinclair. And it's the visitors who take the lead.
Yeah, it was a good save initially from Maynard Brewer. Can you be critical and say he should have turned it round the post for the corner rather than saving it back in? Maybe a little harsh because he gets there, saves it well, and then nobody else reacts in the box to Sinclair, and more importantly to Collins, who got there first. Taken by Eden into the feet of Dobson. Not sure that did us any favours, but it might run through to May. Little touch into Anderson. Anderson trying to send Carno in his way. Carno with a shot! Oh, the equaliser's there! Daniel Carno pouncing in the penalty area after great work from Anderson and Kamara. And Charlton are back in it.
What a finish this is from a talented striker. We've seen it in the academy. And now he's delivering in the first team. It's a wonderful finish. Ball forward, finding Daniel Kanu. Anderson with the ball. Kanu has to get the right connection on that. It's low, near the goalkeeper, but it's awkward for Cox to get his feet in the right position to save it. And what a moment that is for Daniel Kanu and for Charlton.
Ward chips the ball into the box. It's a dangerous one here, and Rovers have scored. McCormick, who'd come on as sub, has just pounced in the box, unmarked, and struck his shot past Maynard Brewer for what must be the victory.
I can't quite believe it, Till, in honest truth. I didn't see it coming. Charlton have been, certainly since getting the equaliser, the better team. And it's just a lofted ball. And Charlton have got a lot of players back, but this from Ward is clever, finds McCormick. He's allowed to control. Charlton don't get tight enough, and the volley's low. Awkward for Maynard Brewer, couldn't keep it out.
There we go. What a painful end to that game it was. Great comment from Stuart Court. And I was about to say, Facts and Stats did a good tweet about it before realising that's the same person on here. Clean sheets are where you get your points from. All successful teams are good at the back. And to further that point, he put on his Twitter account earlier on today, if we get 20 clean sheets in a league season and assume that 3 of them are 0-0 draws, then that means the other 17 aren't, then that's 54 points. Like, if you can base your season on clean sheets, then the fact that we're not quite finding that cutting edge in front of goal just yet, and that's with Alfie not to score yet, he will score goals, don't worry about that, then we will be more than halfway to where we need to be, Tom. Why aren't we any good defensively?
What a question. There's probably 30 plus reasons. I mean, and it changes with every goal. There's the ones that perhaps you'll give them a bit of slack for, like adjusting to a new formation, some youngsters in there, some new players in there. But they're kind of reasons. They're still obviously negatives, but you kind of understand them. But then there are basic errors. There are lapses in concentration. There are silly mistakes. There's lack of focus. There's not following up a free kick. I think it was Joe, possibly, or one of us after the Orient game, I think it was talking about how quick we were to close down after a free kick when Ashley made a good save. So we've proven we can do it already this season. And yet we give away a stupid free kick, first of all, which is entirely on Jack Payne. And then this time there's about 8 Rovers players waiting for the ball and no Charlton player in sight. And set pieces, lack of organisation at set pieces is another one you could chuck in, and that kind of fits with that bit as well. There is just a litany of reasons why this is happening. What's more concerning is that that's happening, or has happened, for 3-4 seasons in a row now that I can remember, where we've conceded. I mean, teams concede sloppy goals all the time, but more than you would expect for the last few years, we are conceding, not week in, week out, but not far off. And that's with changes in personnel, with changes in management, with changes in shape. And the comment's spot on. If we're not going to sort that out, then we're going to have to score at least 2 goals a game. And you look at the way our inability to come back, you look at our lack of goals so far, and that's obviously going to be a problem. So I think we've all kind of said, you start from your back and you get a solid base and you work up. And at the moment, that just isn't really showing. We're too fragile. We're costing ourselves with silly goals. And look, I'm still largely positive about where this season might go. But Tuesday night in particular was very concerning because both of those goals were avoidable. And ultimately, if we look at the other end of the pitch as well, we should have won that game. And we haven't. And if we do want to go up this year, that needs to change.
It was when I sort of got home and thought about it in the cold light of day the next morning, I thought that it was a really entertaining game, which probably the frustration of what happened at the very end took away from that, Lewis. I was thinking about how there's sort of it's tight margins in games like that, and that reminded me of something that Nigel Adkins said a couple of years ago away at Lincoln, where we got absolutely battered and lost in the last minute. And that's when we knew we were on to a really bad season. Like, we were lucky to lose in the last minute. We got away with it for like 89 minutes and then lost right at the end when we should have been 3 or 4 behind. That wasn't the case on Tuesday. Could have easily gone the other way. Don't forget, Bristol Rovers had a lot of chances there, and we talked about the defence as well. I'm still not quite in the situation where I'm panicking too much at the moment, because I still think the performances suggest there's a bit more from us to come once we start putting the ball in the back of the net. And like I say, no one's. Well, I've seen a few people starting to panic because it's 3 games, no goals for Alfie May. I really don't think it's time to start doing that yet. I said the same Tuesday. He was an inch away on Tuesday. I don't think we need to be concerned about that yet. But, take the fact that obviously we're getting close. That's what I'm sort of clinging on to.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's fine margins in the game, but also for Alfie as well. I'm not panicking there. I think, as you say, he's getting closer and closer as the games go by. And of course, the ideal scenario is that he comes in and he hits the ground and starts scoring straight away. But it doesn't always fall that way. There is a lot of expectation on Alfie's shoulders as well, coming in with the reputation he has at this level after doing so well at Cheltenham. And obviously with the added pressure of Miles Leeburn being out, and our only backup being Daniel Kanu, who's just coming through himself. There's a lot of pressure on Alfie's shoulders, and he's a new player. He joined the club this summer. He's got a bed in as much as the others do. It's just that establishment at this level that maybe piles that extra pressure on him. But I'm not panicking because, as you say, he will score goals. He's doing everything right at the moment, apart from those fine margins of getting in the back of the net. But it was a tight game Tuesday. I thought it was fairly close. But as Tom said, it's those clinical final moments that let us down. The defending, if you don't defend properly, you're going to concede goals. It's pretty obvious. And we're not in a position at the moment where we're going to outscore opposition if we fall asleep at the back, which we're doing far too frequently. So, it's something that needs to be addressed. It's a difficult one to look at because the personnel there, back across the back 4 that we played, you've got Asimwe who's playing his first professional season. It's his 3rd game, effectively. He may have played last season. I can't remember. Lloyd Jones has come in, isn't really fully fit at the moment. We've seen him come in and be taken off in every game. Ness had a big injury last season, has come in and maybe looks a little bit out of sorts at times, just getting back up that sharpness. And then we've got Tayo Eden, who, again, has only just sort of embedded himself into the side. So you've got a back 4 there it's a fresh back 4 that's going to take time to gel. There are going to be issues and teething problems, but you can understand them when they're not as basic as they are. I mean, the first goal Tuesday night was totally unforgivable, in my opinion, when you see 4 Bristol Rovers players ahead of our last defender as Ash makes that save and nobody reacts. That's not good enough. You have to be switched on. It was a fantastic save and we all love watching it, but the players can't watch it. They've got to be alert and clearing the ball. And that was, that's an Achilles heel. You concede the mistake, you concede the goal, and then it's an uphill battle straight away. So it's something we need to address pretty quickly. Otherwise, it's going to start becoming a pattern, and that's not what we want.
Yeah, I feel like a bit of a hypocrite slagging off the defending for the first goal, because when Nash made that save, I genuinely thought the ball had gone out of play. From my angle, it looked like it was going out. So I looked away to type, "Oh, Ashley's just made a great save." And then I hear the ball in the back of the net and the Rovers fans cheering. I was really confused by that. But I've watched it back a couple of times now. I've got a different angle from behind sort of northwest corner, and you can see like all of our players are slow to react, and the ones that do, so I think Jones and Asimwe do get back, but they were half a second behind the Rovers players who were queuing up by the time actually put in. I think May and I think it was Payne were on the edge of the box as well, and they sort of strikers defending as you'd expect. They didn't react at all, and it just left them with such a massive overload in there. And yeah, that was disappointing, as was the fact that Luke McCormick runs through into our box in the last minute, and again you'll see Hector and I think it was Ness alongside him, if I remember rightly. I might have misremembered that, but Hector with one other defender, the ball was chipped in, but the McCormick made a really good run sort of off Hector, and instead of the whole defence shuffling over one, so they each had one, there was all of a sudden 2, and then a midfielder left one as well, a third player in our area not marked. So you can't be making mistakes like that at any time of the game. I mean, Jacob Tom is saying that defensively it's just not good enough. We were unlucky going forward, but we need to sort that issue out before we worry too much about the other end.
Yeah, exactly what we said. You have to build from the back, and I think you look at all of those players individually, and I'm seeing the comments come in about the likes of Thomas and Ness and whether they're good enough for a back three. And obviously, it looked like a change of shape on Tuesday night anyway. But individually, though, those players aren't world beaters by any stretch, but they're pretty good players. I thought Eden, I know maybe not fit yet, but I thought he looked excellent the other night. I think given his age, Asimwe has looked very good. Terrell Thomas earned himself this contract off the back of performances last year. Lucas Ness is somebody that we're all talking about as somebody who could improve and be a very good player, although, again, I know he's young. So individually, they're all right. But it's just as a collective, as a unit, something is not going right there. And we're just shipping goals that we absolutely shouldn't be. And even if you're a mid-table side in this division, you look at the goal that we created, for example, that had to be a moment of quality. That had to be a decent pass, a decent timed run in order for us to score. And we're playing a team that, without trying to offend them, we should be beating if we want to go up. And even then in the last minute, when we get through, the move, or not the last minute, but when May hit the post, it's another, well worked to try and get forward. We don't make it difficult for teams. I guess that's the point I'm getting to. And yet, if we didn't have someone like George Dobson, we'd probably be shipping even more goals, because he seems to put in 3 or 4 tackles that prevent attacks every game as well. So it is a big concern. I think there is a chance when Lee Burn's back and when May starts scoring that when you've got 2 up front, we might be the sort of team that can win games 2-1 or 3-2. But at the moment, we're not. At the moment, we've got one striker trying to play on his own in a new system, and it's not quite working. And so until we get those other players back, we have to protect the back 4 or 5 and start from there. And at the moment, that's not enough. And whether that's partly the midfield as well, not giving enough support, whether it is just individual mistakes, all those reasons I gave previously, it needs to be sorted out. Because ultimately, as you said a bit earlier, if you don't concede, you can't lose. And that's where we need to start from.
Connor saying Tuesday night was frustrating, but we have to remember it's only 3 games in. There is still a long way to go. Shiny Phil saying drop Payne and start Kanu up front with May. I think the goals will flow. We have to be more alert in defence. So and it was a cameo from Dan. That's the thing we got to remember. But I think on Tuesday when he came on, Alfie looked more lively. We as an attacking threat looked more lively. We can't base assumptions on players off 20-minute cameos, but he did play well. Has he staked a claim to start up top alongside May? Obviously, we tried the 4-3-3 Tuesday with Payne out on the wing and Blackett Taylor out on the other one. But are we better with 2 up front? And if so, is Kanu ready to start week in, week out until Lee Burn's back, or until we get a more senior striker signed?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because we put ourselves in this position with a lot of other younger players that have come through with a great reputation from solid performances in the 21s and the 18s, but there's such a big gulf between those levels. And look, Kanu is obviously a very talented footballer, and his goal record at those levels is outstanding. But it goes back to my point where you're putting a lot of pressure on the kid to come in and be that gap. And we're already doing it really with Miles. Miles obviously had a very good season last year, but he's still young himself. He could come back after this injury and take time to get up to speed. So it's difficult to put that pressure on young players. I thought his cameo was great on Tuesday. I thought he played well. I thought he took his goal well, and it was a fantastic finish. But I've also seen Kanu come on in league games where he's looked like a little bit like it. There is a clear difference between the level he'd been playing and League One with the adults. You can see sometimes he looks a little bit sort of out of place, maybe a little bit weaker. I think he's worked on that in the summer. I'd say he looks like he's bulked out a bit and stuff, which is obviously good. And doing what he did on Tuesday is going to do him no harm in putting his name into Dino's head about starting. But I think we just need to be wary that he is still, very young and still developing as a player. And I think it'd be interesting to see when Miles does come back and if we end up signing another striker, if we give Dan a loan or not. I don't know. I personally would rather he stayed around the place, but it would be interesting to see if we have more resources in that area, whether he would benefit from going and playing a full season at a club in League Two or something like that.
All hell let loose says with our defensive midfielder playing his socks off, why are we still shipping silly goals? Shiny Phil says, I think Alfie May will start scoring soon. Will be much easier for him when he has another striker alongside him. We have to support him with another striker before his confidence goes. I thought Payne was anonymous after a decent performance against Peterborough. I'd start Carnu on Saturday just because we look so much more threatening. When he came on, Dan's saying that it would be helpful if we could get a stable back four rather than chopping and changing. And obviously, as we said, we've been between 3 and 4 over the last couple of games as well. It should be interesting to see which one Dean feels like he prefers, because I don't know. I've always felt that 3 at the back isn't the most popular with our supporters, but at the same time, we used to play under Bow a couple of times in the Championship, and it works really well for us. But again, have we found the right balance this time? Danny says at least the crossbar challenge attempt was good, I guess. I can't remember this Tuesday's one. I didn't hit it, so it wasn't good in my book, but I've got extremely high standards when it comes to the crossbar challenge. Now, I mean, this is the point that we need to think about. And it does come up sort of every year. Someone in the chat was talking about us starting the season sort of half-baked again. James says it here. Amazing how we always seem to be half-baked at the start of the season, signing players with injuries, chucking youngsters in too quickly, etc. Why do we never learn? So I mentioned about the close, tight margins, whatever you want to call it, earlier on in the show. So I was doing the stats for my paper report. They'll be in tomorrow's SLP after Tuesday's game. And again, because I was thinking about that, it came back to that Nigel Adkins comment, because, like I say, on Tuesday, I was thinking, tight margins, that could have gone either way. And it reminded me of Nigel. But I thought to myself, well, this is something we have been saying for a long time. So I looked up the stats. So statistically, last season, of the however many games didn't end in a draw, well over half were only won by 1 goal, Tom. So statistically, pretty much all the games are tight margins, because 3/4 of them are either a draw or a win by 1 goal. So how do you turn those tight margins in your favour? And when you think about the fact that August has got 5 games in it where there might be tight margins, there might be tight margins at play. How do you turn those in your favour? Well, you do it by not doing what we've done, and as James has mentioned, they're starting half-baked. You do it by, if you have a strike partner that's ready to start alongside Alfie May, then maybe we do go on to win that game with a tight margin, because we make the better of our play and our chances. That's what does frustrate you, because we know the transfer window's going on until the end of the month, and because of where we are, that will sort of be when we judge what this new owner's sort of ambition really looks like. But we have potentially cost ourselves 3 or 4 points due to tight margins because we weren't ready again.
Yeah, and there's only so much you can do pre-season, or when the window opens, and more teams are doing their business late, and it seems to be the way the market's going, and all of this kind of stuff. And I kind of empathise with that to a certain degree. I think probably the problem is that because we've been, exactly as that comment says, half-baked for a while, we need one summer to do very early business and bring a big number in, to then have a core that from then on, every season, you can kind of go with the market again and just bring in your 3 or 4. And if you do leave a couple late, it's not the end of the world. The problem we have is at the end of every year, any of our good players leave or have already left or go back from loan. There's usually a couple of injuries that are worse than you'd expect. And so as a result, bringing 2 or 3 in isn't enough. Because if we look at the business we have done, I think we're all relatively encouraged by most of the players that have come in, but it's not enough. That's the problem. And then, no one could have predicted Miles's injury at the start. No one could have predicted Scott Fraser having to go off in the first game. Those are players that were big players for us last year and are out for a significant period of time. But as I say, if we'd even 2 years ago had a squad that actually had some depth to it, then probably there'd be enough of that depth still around that we'd be able to cope with that. So for me, it's partly a hangover of the Sangard, maybe even going back to the Roland days, but probably the Sangard days more. And partly this new bunch maybe not bringing in enough. And I think they can obviously rectify that bit now. So I know we can't get those points back that we've already lost, but they could bring players in to make the squad a bit bigger. But again, unless they bring another 8 in, maybe, which definitely isn't going to happen, then next summer, again, we're going to have this problem because we're still going to be relatively short. So it is really difficult. I love the fact that people like Asimwe and Karoy and Tyrese, until he got injured, and players like that are getting their opportunities, but they shouldn't now be being forced to play their 5th game of the season already when the season's only 2 or 3 weeks old because we've got nobody else. But having lost the last 2 games, we become more and more desperate to get a win suddenly. And so you want to play the best team you've got available. So it becomes a horrible sort of circle, a vicious cycle. So yeah, there are factors all across the club that go into that. These owners probably came in too late. Is that their fault? Is that Sangard's fault? Whatever, for not getting the deal done until too late. That hasn't helped. I know we did get players in that time, but could we have got more? Cutting the budget. All these factors come into it. And ultimately, as you say, that puts us where we are. And I think Tuesday night is a game we would have expected to win. That's the only one really where I think that was an issue. You know, Peterborough, I think we could have got something, but ultimately going away to Peterborough is not an easy game. But Tuesday night, we should have gone into it expecting a win and ultimately had chances to win, and we haven't. So yeah, it's frustrating. The games come thick and fast, so we're going to have a chance to put it right on Saturday. But again, who's going to play? Who's fit? Who needs a rest? All those questions when you've got such a threadbare squad at the moment.
Excellent stuff. Right, Rob tweeted, I think we're in danger of overthinking it at the moment. Just have to be patient. The club are looking to strengthen, but not just anybody. We need quality. Saying that, Carney will have a point to prove. And if we'd got a second on Tuesday, it could well have been 3 or 4. I had a couple of emails as well, Reg, describing it like Groundhog Day. The Addicks fans repeatedly watching exciting build-up play and scoring opportunities not converted, whilst at the other end of the pitch, random defensive lapses give the opposition goals, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Whilst Chooks and Ike watched on from the stand. And Paul said he attended the game on Tuesday. I thought the team put a good shift in. The stoppage time curse strikes again, though. How many points have we dropped to last-minute goals since the playoff final in 2019? Says his concern is, despite the amount of effort we put in, Rovers, who we expect to be mid-table, were more than a match for us and actually looked much more efficient in both defence and attack. I put some of that down to the management team, as our fitness, shape and positional sense, particularly at set pieces, clearly needs work. But the main issue for me is that our squad is not good enough at the moment. Still loads to talk about, loads of stuff in the chat as well. We will come to that after we've heard, I think, from the Addicks boss, Dean Holden. I spoke to him after the defeat against Bristol Rovers, and this is what he had to say. Sucker punch right at the end there. What did you make of tonight's game?
I thought it was only one team that were trying to win the game of football. I think they've come for a point. They've ended up getting a smash and grab, and fair play to them. I think we've conceded we're conceding poor goals at the moment. You know, we need to be more clinical in both boxes, and that's the only thing that's letting us down at the moment. Ash has made a really good save from the free kick, and nobody's reacted. And there's 3 or 4 that are there for the tapping. That's not good enough, and you've got to see them moments off. It's a concentration thing, a little bit of naivety as well, I think. And the second one at the end there, we've got a free kick on near enough around the halfway line. We should be putting it in their box every minute to go, and we've gone short and ended up losing it down our right hand side, and they boot it up the pitch, and set piece or 2 later they're in, and again we don't react well enough and don't mark well enough in the box, and you're right, it's a bit of a sucker punch. I think we're showing a really good reaction to get back into the game of really good goals. We're having to score really good goals at the moment through Daniel Carney with an excellent finish, and there was only one team trying to win the game at that point, but we don't feel sorry for ourselves. We're getting punished at the moment.
Was that a concern? Obviously, defensively, last season was a problem. That tonight, Bristol Rovers did have 3 or 4 sort of gilt-edged chances, even if it wasn't near the end when Charlton felt like they were on top.
Yeah, I thought we started the first half well. I thought we had some good chances. They've had one moment really in that first half where we've not got tight early enough around the halfway line. They've wriggled out of trouble, and they've had that one chance. And I think when we conceded the first goal, I think we've got a little bit ragged. We immediately we were going to bring Daniel Carney on anyway, but we immediately got a bit ragged. We went 4-4-2. They had an extra man in midfield. There was gaps appearing, and we were chasing it a little bit. And I think that's when one of the ones off the line was cleared from Nessie. And quickly we got that goal back, and we really put our foot to the gas and should have come out with at least a point. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, we have to be better defensively. Of course we do. We have to be better in both boxes at the moment. There's a lot of really good signs. There's a lot of really good stuff. But we're being punished, and I say the last thing we'll do is feel sorry for ourselves. We're going to need our supporters behind us again at home to Port Vale at the weekend. I thought they were excellent again tonight. Even when they scored the first goal, they're still continually singing. They can see the boys are giving everything. Yes, there's a little bit of concentration and a bit of naivety that I've just touched on, but the boys are giving everything. You can see that, and I think for the most part we had a really good shape defensively, but we didn't get what we deserved again.
Do you think needs to be the catalyst for those chances to start going in at the other end? Because I mean, Alfie couldn't have come much closer tonight. Obviously,
No.
Corey heavily involved again.
Yeah, I thought there was some real big moments around their box, and we're just not capitalising on them key moments. Are we? I mean, Alfie's had some chances first half, Corey the same, and obviously, as I said, once we got the goal back, Alfie's gone through. He's hit the post to go and take the game away from him, and then he's got through the wrong side of the defender and been brought down. Another one-on-one denied, taken away from us. I get a yellow card for saying it's a disgrace of a decision. I'm not sure that's worthy of a yellow, but it is where it is at the minute, innit? That's the referees are on them types of things at the moment. So, like I said there, Louis, we've come away from it. We're looking at the defeats we've had recently, and you think we deserve more, there's no doubt. But you have to face up to reality and look at where we're falling a bit short at the moment and keep trying to improve. We've got Taylor was done, he's cramped, he needed to come off. Lloyd Jones the same. Panucci Kamara was battling on through. Obviously, Corey historically has struggled to go Saturday through injuries, but he's had a good pre-season. I'm delighted that he managed to get through the whole period of the game. So, again, lots of positives in there, but no one wants to hear that, do they, when you've lost a home game? So, that's for us to digest and make sure we keep everybody bubbly, make sure we keep the positivity about the place, and we're not far away from that next 3 points.
Thought Dan was probably the liveliest we've seen from him tonight. Obviously got his goal with a fantastic finish. I mean, could he be the answer to the partner for Alfie May at this time? Obviously he's still very young.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly the one in the building at the moment. We're obviously looking to strengthen in certain areas, and we know what type of profile we need to bring in. As I've said there, we need to score the perfect goals, lots of balls going in their box that we're not quite getting on the end of, and we keep working on that.
It's only been a couple of weeks since Ashley had one of the best games we've seen from him, but I think he'll probably feel a little bit that he could have done better with that second goal.
Yeah, he's honest enough to know that. I say I think he's made a brilliant save first half. Sorry for the first goal, but yeah, mate, I think we look back at the second one and we're not defending well enough in front of him to start with. But obviously he's the last line, and I think he'll probably look at that and think he could have done a bit better. But it is what it is, as I say.
Thinking about a new kitchen or bathroom? Find professional, independent local installers with free home surveys, itemised quotes and protected payments, trading standards approved contracts, and workmanship warranties. The British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom, Bathroom Installations accredits installers to ensure they are police checked, fully insured, and experienced. Take the risk out of home improvement. Visit bikbbi.org.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the River. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live, the big match preview there. We just heard from the Addicks boss before the advert break, looking back at the defeat against Bristol Rovers. Brazilian says doesn't agree with Dean. It was a snatch and grab. We barely edged possession. We had 25 chances to their 21. George sort of saying similar, saying they came for a draw was disrespectful. They should have put the game to bed in the 10 minutes after their goal. Yeah, and I think the Bristol Rovers fans I've spoken to didn't quite agree with the sentiment. Even if, at full time, it felt like we were the team pushing, which is why it felt so gutting at the end when obviously they got the winner. But I mean, they did have one cleared off the line about 10 minutes before Alfie May hit the post, and it's easy to forget that in the passion of the moment. And Bristol Rovers fans certainly didn't agree with what Dean had to say after the game. Dan had to say some good questions here. All hell let loose as well. I've been asking about obviously Egbo leaving and about freeing up wages. And it's a good point, actually. And it is one I asked Dean Holden about specifically during the interview on Tuesday. So I'll just play that now just because I don't know if it clears up the question, but let's hear what Dean had to say on it anyway. Rejoining Ben Garner over at Colchester. Obviously, it was going to have to be outs before ins. Does that mean you're now in a better position to try and strengthen?
Well, I think, obviously, continue with speaking to Andy and looking at finding out what that looks like. I think for Manny, he wanted to play first team football. He had an opportunity, and for us, it frees up a little bit of space. You had to do some work.
I guess it'll be for the likes of Andy Scott and stuff. They've seen the last couple of games and they know exactly where Charlton need to improve, and ideally sooner rather than later.
Yeah, of course. There's only a couple of weeks now with a window to go. We're desperately trying to bring the right players to the club, and I think everybody that's been at the game tonight, certainly at the game of the weekend, would see where we're falling short a little bit, but also see lots of positives in there. So yeah, we've got a bit of work to do, but we get on with it and we look for.
So Dean obviously still talking about getting transfer business done. Probably doesn't quite answer the question, Tom, about where we are with FFP and exactly how that works. So I was reading this website that someone put up earlier on this week about, if the owners want to, they can put money into the club and effectively increase the way the revenue works. That's sort of the way I was reading what this said. So not necessarily, waiting for people to go out before people coming in, I think would be a decision rather than us strictly playing to the rule book. I feel like there would be room for manoeuvre if we wanted to, but certainly the word from Dean over the last couple of weeks has been, we're more likely to be moving people on before others come in. And we heard there in answer to my question, does that give you more manoeuvrability now? He sort of said, yes, effectively.
Yeah, and ultimately there's a difference between just balancing FFP and simply chucking money at the problem. So you might just want to run a club fairly evenly if you can, and not really take FFP in, or you do like a Todd Bowley and you go, well, I'm going to chuck billions at it and just make sure that whatever I do fits FFP. So I'm not saying we're obviously at that level of wealth, but I'm saying there are ways to play with it, and it's not just one or the other. I think, and I just saw somebody put it in the comments there about the fact that I think the owners were there. I definitely saw Charlie Methan there after saying he wasn't going to be front and centre, and now he's turning up at pubs and turning up at games and doing whatever. So really hiding behind the scenes. But, he's there, and if he's reporting back to whoever's got the money, then, they're able to see what the problems are. And you would think that if they're purely looking at the numbers and they're purely looking at a return on their investment, which they're not going to get whilst we're in League One, then they know that they need to take a bit of a short-term hit for their sake, hopefully a longer-term gain. And obviously for us as fans, it's a longer-term gain as well. So, yeah, it's not easy. I don't know the figures in terms of what they've got, but, if they're buying a club like Charlton, then they're not billionaires, because then they'd be looking at a club that's perhaps a little bit higher up the divisions. But there are gaps in this side. We've said that since day one. I don't think the gaps are as big once the injuries come back as maybe some. But at the same time, I completely concede that you can't be making stupid mistakes like we did at the weekend. And I do definitely think the squad is short. So, yeah, we need to bring players in. It's as simple as that. We've got, 2 weeks today, I think, till the window closes. We need, as we've said pretty consistently, at least 3 or 4 bodies through the door. And they need to be bodies that ultimately are going to improve the squad. There's no point signing the 3 of us because we're not going to make much of a difference. So how many of those players are out there? What can they do? Who can fill the right gaps, and who fits with this system? And who can we get with the money? There's all of that has to be factored in. And ultimately, we need to get that right if we're going to have a chance, I think.
We'd definitely stay within FFP if they signed us free. I think our wages would be paltry. Lewis, obviously people have been mentioning in the chat all evening. We've been linked with Fankity Darbo again, the former Coventry fullback, shot to fame in the playoff final. Of course, with an unfortunate penalty miss that meant Luton it was that went up. Probably one of the worst kept secrets is that he failed a medical with us earlier on in the summer. Exactly what that meant, we don't know. It's not like they got there and said, "Oh, he's only got one leg." It was obviously a minor. There was some sort of issue with it. If we are looking at him now again, they've either decided he's worth the risk or he's taken a lower offer. However, these things work. I mean, he's played a lot of Championship football on paper. I can't say I know a great deal about him, but I mean, we need bodies in that area, especially now that we've lost Manny. Is he one you're excited to see coming in if he were to come in?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's important that we replace that area. I know we may think that we have bigger priorities up front, but you lose Manny, then you do need to replace, because at the moment we've just got Nathan Asimwe playing there who, as I've said already about the young players, it's a lot of pressure. So yeah, I don't know a huge amount about Darbo. Obviously I saw the playoff final and saw him miss the penalty, but there's fairly not mixed reviews from Coventry, but I think they've said that he's sort of better going forward than he is at defending. So may suit this 5 at the back system, playing wing backs. But yeah, we'll have to see. Look, if he comes in, I'll be happy because it is an incoming, and I think we need one. I think we need to have depth so that some of these younger players can come in and out. I saw in the chat earlier talking about Corey Anderson. He'd have played, if he plays Saturday, 3 games in a week. He's only young. That's a lot. we've got to be able to have that, that squad size, so we're able to rotate. So, look, if we get the deal done, it'd be great to see him come in, and hopefully it works out for him, and that championship experience plays in our favour, and he can hit the ground running. But yeah, let's see what happens with that one.
Excellent stuff. Right, Port Vale coming to the Valley on Saturday. As is tradition, we've got a Port Vale fan to join us on the stream this evening. Good evening to Gadger. How you doing, mate?
Evening, lads. You all right?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Thanks so much for joining us at short notice, in particular as well. Port Vale, so your second season back in League One now. Wasn't off to a flying start with the 7-0 defeat at Barnsley, but I mean it's been a good recovery since then. What have you made of the start of the campaign?
I think I said to you obviously on Twitter, on the message. I went to Barnsley, went to Blackpool Tuesday, just about recovering at the minute from that. So Barnsley, you know what? After 20 minutes, half an hour, anybody who's watching it, any Vale fans who went, there was 1,600 of us. You go, you know what? Doing all right here. And then we just collapsed like a cheap tent. Second half, it was a bit embarrassing, to be honest. But then, like you said, we then play Fleetwood, win 3-2. Could have gone either way, to be fair. But then Blackpool did really well. Reading, we absolutely, for me, second half was our best performance I've seen for 3 or 4 years, to be fair.
That's excellent. I mean, when you came to the Valley at the very end of last season, I think your survival was secured that day, even though we beat you. I mean, in terms of expectation, what is the expectation this year? Because I think you were probably happy with staying up last year.
I think, you know what? Yes, we were happy with staying up, but I think when you looked at it from just before New Year's Day, we went to Sheffield Wednesday and we were 8th and only something like 2 points behind the playoffs. So, I mean, obviously exceeding expectations, yes, but at the same time, we looked a decent side. And then from that, we won one away game until the end of the season. So, obviously it's well documented in regards to what happened with Clark, etc. And you wouldn't wish it on anybody, to be fair. But no, I think we did what we needed to do last season in regards to staying up. And, coming to your place, it was a really good day, really good atmosphere as well. Obviously, we bought, I think, near enough 1,000, I think. For the last game of the season when there's nothing on it was decent. But you guys absolutely battered us. So going from that then into this season, obviously, you will have seen that we've let quite a few players go and we needed to as well. But we haven't signed any strikers, and that's a bit of a worrying thing.
We'll probably be in the same market then, because we could do with another one at least. And Andy Crosby. What have you made of Andy Crosby as manager then? So as you said, he took over from Darryl Clark right at the end of last season.
Well, to be fair, I mean, even when we got promoted, the season we got promoted, obviously, like I say, he was documented and he was kind of running the team anyway. So, the lads all knew him, etc. I spoke to different people throughout the club, and they all rate him quite highly. Obviously, he did a decent job with Northern Ireland under 21s, and people speak highly of him as a coach. Obviously, a manager's, it's a bit of a different thing. But I think the jury is obviously still out. But when he got appointed, everybody's saying, it's a cheap option, and yes, it is. But we haven't got the money like some clubs, so. It's kind of, he knows the players, he knows the club, he knows how everything works. And straight away after, first game, 7-0 loss, and everybody's going, oh, God, what the hell? But give the guy a chance. That's what I think. Give the guy a chance.
Excellent. And then just finally, who are the danger men we should be looking out for on Saturday? Dan's asked who you're going to be having up front as well. So who are like the the most potent players you've got?
Good question, because we haven't really got anybody. Question, we kind of played at Blackpool. We kind of played sort of a 5-4-1, if you like, but we didn't have a recognised striker to start. Lad from Swansea, Josh Thomas. He's lively. He's decent. He come on after about 70 minutes, and he's a threat. Ball behind. I don't know what your back 4-5 or, but he's a threat. He's definitely a threat. I think we're more of a threat from midfield with the runners. To be fair, I would have liked to sign the guy you had, Alfie May. I think he would have done us good, but obviously you got him. I think more so the runners from midfield have got good energy, and that's where I'll be looking at to get in behind you from runners.
Excellent stuff. Well, Gadger, thanks so much for joining us on Charlton Live this evening, and may the best team win on Saturday.
No problem. Yeah, you two look after yourself. See you later.
Cheers. See you later. There we go. That's Gadger, the Port Vale fan, joining us on Charlton Live. He was excellent there. Gave us the lowdown on Andy Crosby's side. Obviously, we'll ignore everything he said, Tom, and just say we should be beating teams like Port Vale, shouldn't we, on Saturday? So we said it on Tuesday. We didn't. I mean, this is a big game for us actually, because we can't go 3 games without a win at this start of the season.
Yep, and yeah, we should be winning this, and we should have gone into, well, we did go into Tuesday night expecting a win, and I think probably should have there as well in terms of what our aspirations are. I think losing Tuesday was hugely frustrating, but I don't think. Look, Saturday's not going to be season defining, but if you win 2 and lose 2, I think that's okay, given one of those is Peterborough. If you win 1 and you lose 3, it's a massive, massive difference. And as you say, it would be 3 in a row as well. So yeah, it's hugely important. And again, look, they've shown that they can be carved open, as Barnsley showed on the opening day. I think they've only scored 1 goal in those 3, so it's not going to be much fun, is it? If they can't score and we can't score, but I'd take a scrappy 1-0 right now just to stabilise everything. I'm not panicking, and I think most fans, from what I've seen, once you get over Tuesday night, from Wednesday morning onwards, most people are seeing the positives in terms of the performance and in terms of what we're capable of. But how long do we keep saying that whilst we're not getting the results? We can't get to game 45 where we've lost 44 of them and go, but there were positive signs. So we need to turn that around at some point, and it needs to start sooner rather than later if we're not going to start to fall behind the likes of Bolton, who are very much the front runners at this stage in the season. So it's not panic stations. If we do only get a draw, it's not the end of the world. If it's a loss, I'm more concerned. But ultimately, we have to look at this game as a winnable game, same as we did on Tuesday. And hopefully this time it will be the case, and Alfie May's shot will creep 2 inches further to the left and go in the top corner instead of hitting the post, and happy days. So, I'm confident going into it still, and I still think we'll be fine. But it's a big old game, isn't it, as a result of Tuesday?
Yeah, you mentioned Bolton started really well, as we expected. The 2 teams that were predicted to start well or to do well this season, Bolton and Derby, have had an absolute shocker. Lost all 3 of their home games in all competitions so far this season. Only one at Burton. So that's interesting that they've not started too well either. Let's hear Dean Holden look ahead to the Port Vale game. He caught up with Terry in today's press day.
And the group, how is it? How are they ahead of Saturday? Any positive news we can share, or any negative news come to that we can share ahead of Saturday?
I'm not sitting on the fence, but I will do, because the answer is I'm not sure. We've got, as I've just touched on, certain players who we don't need to name, because I know opposition managers watch these press conferences, because I watch theirs. So I don't need to name any players, but there's players that have for 3 games in a week can be tough for some of them. So some knocks and bruises. Where are we now? We're not too further on from Tuesday night's game, are we, really, in terms of recovery? So again, we'll see what we've got tomorrow, Terry, in terms of the group. In terms of lads coming back in, we'll see. Again, no secrets being given away there. But one or two are getting closer now, which is a good thing, and we'll add to the competition.
Port Vale to come on to the Valley on Saturday after their worst possible start that they could have probably imagined. They've more than steadied the ship. 3 games unbeaten now since that first game defeat. So they'll come to the Valley with some confidence rather than the team that might have come had they just had that 7-0 defeat. So you're going to be expecting a tough one, of course.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you only got to look at the stats from that game. I think Barnsley had 8 attempts on goal and scored 7. A lot of the other stats around that game, Port Vale were better than them. So I think it was a freak result. I've watched the game back as I've watched the one since then, and yeah, they're a team that have played consistently with a back 5. Sometimes with 2 strikers and a 10, sometimes with 2 10s and 1 single striker. So, of course, we know exactly where their strengths are. They're a team who play quite expansive with the ball in terms of the back 3 split really wide. So you've got to make sure you get the right pressure on at the right times. Having said that, the ball will come forward and you've got to defend second balls in that midfield area. Long throw as well and the big on set pieces. So, huge threat coming to the Valley, but it's a game where I expect a response from our players. I know the fans will be right behind us at kick-off, and it's a game where I expect the players to go out and continue really where we've been recently, which is going out taking the game to the opposition. And hopefully we can take the chances when they come, and the game looks completely different.
You mentioned the fans there; they'll have been knocked obviously by a recent couple of results, but not the performances. As you also mentioned, the Valley atmosphere. First game was outstanding. The travelling support of Peterborough, and then again on Tuesday night, they were full of voice. You'll want them there again on Saturday.
Yeah, again, it goes without saying, Terry. They know they can relate to this team and to the way that we work, because I think they can see what they see on the pitch. A lot of frustration around results. No one's more frustrated than me. You know, it's been a difficult week, hasn't it? Let's be honest in terms of results, but there's a much bigger picture to this. You know, it's a new group that are coming together. I said there, players getting up to speed. You know, we've got to continue to grow. The standards that we set around the training ground will continually be pushed. It's important that we stay consistent in how we work, but we keep pushing them standards and keep pushing the ambition of this football club. My job is to make sure we extract everything from every group, every player, every member of staff, and you give your best of every day and go and look after the guy next to you and the guy this side of you as well. And that's what we've got here, and that's what I'm really proud of, and the fans are part of that, and they know that. And let's hope we can get them the 3 points that they deserve on Saturday, and then it's been a decent start.
There we go. That's Dino looking ahead to Saturday's home game with Port Vale at the Valley. I always like the respect that you get from managers for other teams and other managers. It's always a big point, you know, when you're facing someone who's not necessarily had a great season. Port Vale started all right, but you always say, oh, they should be higher than they are and stuff like that. I think Dean took it to the next level by suggesting they were slightly unlucky in their 7-0 defeat. But there we go. That's Dean Holden looking ahead to the game. Loads of stuff for us to talk about in terms of our teams. Obviously, we've covered Vale with Gadget there, which was really good. But defensively, obviously, I mean, the big one of the talking points for me this week, which I think has slightly gone under the radar, is this tweet from Michael Hector. So Robert on Twitter was saying, gimme, a man from Jamaica. His name is Michael Hector and he plays for the Reds, suggesting that should be a song. And Big Heck responded, got to play first, with a laughy emoji. Now, are we in borderline? Oh, you shouldn't be doing that at this stage of the season, Michael, implying that you think you should be playing ahead of the manager, or am I reading too much into that, Lewis? What are we saying?
It's difficult, isn't it? You don't know if he's having a bit of a laugh, saying like, you know, it's a decent song, but he's got to have a game first because maybe his fitness isn't up, or whether he's having a dig. I don't know. It's a difficult one to read. It's bizarre to do it so early into a season, that's for sure. But I don't know. You'd like to think that Heck's quite a good professional. He's been in the game a long time, gained a lot of experience at different levels. So he probably meant nothing by it, to be honest. But who knows? I mean, he makes a bit of a claim. Should he be playing? I mean, I like him as a player. I think he's a strong leader in the back, but it's he was probably a little bit at fault for a goal on Tuesday night as well. So I wouldn't read too much into it at this stage. I don't think he probably just is having a bit of a joke.
Yeah, that's what everyone in the comments is saying. To be fair, Freeman, Josh, and Brazilians all saying Brazilians saying he's probably just having a laugh. Seems like a bit of a joker to me. I mean, I don't think he's quite the certain pick that some fans seem to think he is. You know, I mean, if we're looking at just this season, obviously he started in the Newport game where we weren't good enough defensively. The Aberdeen friendly, I mean, he admitted himself he had a bit of a stinker in. There were times last season where he was very much one of the defenders that was part of making mistakes. You know, the 6-0, he made 2 or 3 mistakes that led either directly to goals or to good chances for Ipswich Town, for example. But also, you know, there were times last season where it felt like he came in and steadied the ship. So is he the answer? I mean, quite a few people have put in the chat they'd like to see him come in and start. I mean, do we need to make that change at the back, Tom? And if so, who would you see coming out? I guess that also feeds into, would it be a 3 or a 4 at the back?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty, ironically, I'm pretty consistent in saying this, but I like a consistent back line, whether that's a back 5 or a back 4 and the personnel, unless people are in a complete slump or if there's injuries. And I think nobody's covered themselves in glory. I think Jones has probably been the best of the central defenders, maybe, but maybe isn't at a place, as I think Lewis said earlier, where he can play 90 minutes every week. And given he's played a lot of football in the last 2-3 weeks, might need a break. I think Ness is a prospect, and I think Terrell Thomas has glimpses and can do that left side okay. So, you know, I don't think I'd have no problem at this stage in the season of swapping any of them out, despite what I said about the consistency, purely because I don't think anybody's covered themselves in glory. In terms of the back 4 or 5, I think it's difficult because if Tuesday we'd had a back 5, I would have said we stick with it. But now that he's mixed it up, I don't know. We haven't really had enough time with either for me to make a decision. And maybe it just depends on the opposition. I think the one thing that I'm more kind of certain on is the need for 2 up front. And although what we've said about blooding youngsters too much, I thought the difference that Kanu made when he came on, in terms of his height, in terms of his movement, in terms of his kind of natural ability to play up front, it really helped us. And it's a big call to play him because we've seen him. I have a feeling he started. I don't know if it was a league game, but I have a feeling we saw him for certainly for an extended period of a game last season, and he didn't really pull up any trees. But I don't know. May just needs that support. I know we were having a debate on WhatsApp earlier about whether we were a long ball team or not, but we certainly were hitting balls direct up to Alfie May, and nothing was sticking. And we probably played 2 or 3 up to Kanu, and he won headers every time. So that end of the pitch, I'd like to see those 2 play. And then I guess the decision between the back 4 and the 5 is, for me, how much can we get the likes of Corey Blackett-Taylor and Tayo Eden, if he's fit again, into the game? Because going forward, they're dangerous. But difficult one at the back. As I say, I'd have no problem with Hector coming in. I think probably, if that is the case, it would be maybe for Thomas, but I don't know. You could probably pick names out of a hat, to be honest, because as we've all said, the problem is pretty much everything at the back at the moment.
Yeah, you reminded me there actually that Pete Essen tweeted me earlier saying, could it be possible to discuss our long ball tactic, which clearly isn't working. If it didn't work for Stockley, which didn't surprise me, it wouldn't work for May. And it did start a bit of a debate because, I mean, if there was one dimension I had to say we were one-dimensional in, I'd say it was giving the ball to Corey and hoping he'd done stuff. But obviously, I mean, we did mix it up a little bit and try the long ball a few times, and not going to work for Alfie May. But statistically, Joe was looking at some numbers in our WhatsApp group earlier, and statistically, we've got one of the most accurate long ball passing consistency, whatever it is, so far this season. So actually, the bits we've tried haven't been too bad. But obviously, we can't do that too consistently to Alfie because it won't work until someone like Lee Byrne is back. I mean, Shiny Phil saying May is not a target man. The long balls are a waste of time if he's up on his own. But I guess if every time we got the ball, we just went straight to Corey, then we'd become too predictable. And I assume that's why we're trying to find the difference. Just finally, Lewis, because we are very much on the brink, and I did want this to be a chat. Does Ashley keep his place on Saturday? He made a mistake, but he's also made some good saves already this season.
I think so. Yeah, I think he made a decent save for the free kick. Bit of an error being beaten at his near post, but he's made some fantastic stops, sort of one-on-one as well, over the last couple of games. So I don't think Tuesday is enough to take him out. But I mean, I would like to see Iceland play too. But I think for now, Ash should retain his place. He hasn't done a huge amount wrong. Yeah,
same for me. Although obviously this will bite me in the backside when he throws one in on Saturday, because that's the way these things work. Right, we've come to the end of this week's show. Thanks for everyone who's joined us live on the YouTube comments section, or listen back via the podcast, sent in your messages and all that. We really do appreciate everyone who comes along for the ride with the show. Massive thanks to Gadger, our resident Port Vale fan who joined us earlier on in the evening. Thanks to Lewis and Tom. Go off and have a beer and a relax now.
Cheers,
Cheers,
gents.
mate.
See you Saturday.
Always an absolute pleasure. I'm Louis Mendez. This has been Charlton Live, sponsored by the British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom and Bathroom Installation. Don't forget, we'll be back on Sunday morning to look back at the game with Port Vale. We will make sure we're finished in time for the World Cup final, which, of course, we're looking forward to as well. We shall see you on Sunday.
Charlton Live.